Every event you host with iVent means trees planted. Did you know that an average conference attendee emits 145 kilograms of CO2 per day? Traditional events are one of the biggest contributors in the world to travel emissions and food waste. It's time to change that with virtual. iVent is the leading virtual and hybrid events platform with people in mind and a mission to make events carbon neutral. Their secure, customizable platform and friendly in-house event specialists come together to help you deliver engaging virtual event experiences. Visit ivent-hq.com today to discover how their solutions can help you deliver virtual events that make the planet greener.
Are you
And 9, 8,
okay, so we're gonna
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here's your host, BizBash chairman and founder, David Adler.
Today's GatherGeeks by BizBash is a collaborative show that we did in conjunction with the Society of Independent Show Organizers, BizBash, and Event Relief 2021, raising funds for EventWell, a charity for the hospitality workers in the UK who have been impacted by the pandemic. It was the brainchild of Dan Assor, who created a 24-hour vodcast. Today, RD Whitney will join me as the co-host of this episode. He is the visionary founder of the newly created 365 Media that creates a community for community leaders. Also joining us, and will be formally introduced by RD, is Liz Irving, who is the Executive Vice President, Head of Marketing, Technology, and Customer Experience at Clarion Events North America, and Paul Treanor, the Senior Manager of Content and Community for Informa, one of the largest event businesses on the planet. So let's take a listen. Today, we're going to be talking about the evolving world of virtual and hybrid events, which, while they were going on before COVID, we have taken 10 giant leaps ahead. And the guests that we have today have been in the middle of it, representing probably more DNA of different exhibition companies than anyone I've gathered. But before we get into the platforms, we want to talk about the people that are using the platforms and hear the unvarnished truth about what we have learned about absolutely everything. But before I start, you said the words, most people don't have a clue what the hell SISO is. It's the Society of Independent Show Organizers, and they serve the needs of people that operate trade shows, consumer shows, conferences, and other, I call them human gatherings at scale, because we know how to connect people, and we believe that the people that are involved in SISO are the collaboration artists of the world. It's a story itself, how you grow communities that are passionate about what they do, and it mirrors the evolutions of what happens when you gather people together. They want more community, content, and context to do their jobs better and form fulfilling relationships and do business with people that they trust. And that is a key thing. A SISO has large companies and small companies. I represent a small company. These others represent very large companies. It operates out of Europe and Asia and Africa and India, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand with 195 members. But that 195 is incredibly powerful. That group produces over 3,500 events and has a $122 billion impact on the global economy when you add everything together about what they do. We believe that event organizers are truly the tastemakers of the world. So RD, do you want to take it from here?
Sure, David. Yeah. Today we have a live discussion on how the world has changed since March 14th. Helping us with the discussion are two event superstars. The endlessly curious 20-year event veteran Liz is currently the Executive Vice President, Head of Marketing, Technology, and Customer Experience at Clarion Events North America. She keeps her eye on the intersection between the customer experience and continuously evolving products that make events successful. She, like our other guest, Paul, is obsessed with how communities function and thrive. So welcome, Liz. Great to see you. Paul Treanor is the Senior Manager, Content and Community for Informa. With over 20 years experience, he's been involved in some of the largest and fastest growing trade shows and consumer shows in the US at companies such as Hanley Wood, DMG, Comexposium. He's very active in lots of communities in our business, and he's a board member to small nonprofit organizations and champion volunteer dog rescue groups. So welcome, Paul.
So let's start off. The common denominator here is community. RD has been preaching to me, and everyone in this room knows that if we cannot make a community connected, we might as well just have a bunch of trees planted in the forest and nobody connects to anyone else. Can each of you tell us, when you talk about what you do, how do you explain your job to your mom? What the hell do you do?
Yeah, sure. I think you get some looks sometimes. So I always say I'm in the trade show business and the event management side, but my job really, as you say, is connecting buyers and sellers through live and digital experiences. And it's about helping them find content and thought leadership, products and services, but most of all, connecting peer-to-peer, colleague to colleague to further their careers and their businesses.
Can you tell a little bit about the kinds of events that you're doing at Clarion? Because I think people don't realize the scope of what Clarion is, because these are relatively new companies to America, and in terms of people knowing them off the top of your tongue. So tell us a little bit about Clarion.
Clarion has grown substantially over the last couple of years, and we're now in over 10 markets. We have 50 plus events that we run. We also have a very strong media business, which has been very successful for us, especially during the COVID time. And we most recently acquired Quartz Events, which is a hosted buyer meeting business, which is also allowing us to diversify. So we cover everything from fashion and food service to fire rescue and energy on a global basis. And the media business also supports those.
What's the most fun thing you do?
Oh man, I think trade shows in general are fun every day, but for me, it's about coming into work, talking to customers, and connecting with my teams to deliver solutions and experiences that really exceed expectations.
And Paul, let's go through what you do, and also give us a little bit about Informa, because Informa in the last year has become a good element. My friend Charlie McCurdy, who I work for at Primedia, is now the president of the event side. And it's so exciting when he talks about how we don't have to publish magazines, that we have trade shows. They're fantastic.
As part of Informa Markets, obviously, most everyone knows, and if you don't, it touches every industry across every nation, thousands and thousands of colleagues globally. I work specifically on the International Surface event. I've also worked in the past at Dwell on Design with Informa Markets. And how do I explain to my mom what I do for a living as well as others? Because I work on a show that's primarily floor covering related, she's very fond of telling her friends that I am a floor covering installer, which I can't even barely pick up a screwdriver and not hurt myself. So most of the time I have to explain it to people that if they've ever been to their local state or county fairs, those Ginsu knives that they see at the booths, think of that and apply it across a specific industry. And that's the easiest way to get it across.
Right. Before we go into sort of the details of hybrid and all that, I want to go with, for RD, this question is for all of you. Okay. What is your theory on community? All of you come from that sort of basis, that we're not really in the event business, we're in the community building business. RD, do you want to start with your sort of theory of the case?
Sure.
By the way, this is a masterclass when you hear this.
Yeah. So community can take so many forms, but the event industry, we're very blessed because one of the strongest assets you can build and grow a community from is an event, because it has the right ingredients. When I describe to somebody what a community is, it's a professional home. It gives professionals a home. And I like to give by example. At one point, a group of entrepreneurs and myself, we took over a bankrupt newsletter in the accounting space in some of the job functions that didn't have a professional home, accounts payable, accounts receivable. There's 500,000 of them in America. And we created a membership with tools and resources online that they could access. We started doing events in Disney and Vegas, and we created a national certification program. So we gave it a home. In the more recent case, when COVID hit, and we all needed to learn how to do virtual events very quickly, me and 3 other co-founders created the Virtual Events Institute, run by Sophie. And we've given that industry a professional home. Now, 8.5 million marketers who need that skill set around the world can get it through 11 modules of online learning and an awards program now to share best practices. And so these things, they percolate and they strengthen, but there's usually some kind of an asset. And if that asset can start with an event, which is common to everyone involved in this entire marathon here, that's a great position to start from. So we have good ingredients.
Liz, do you want to talk about your sort of theory? I've had conversations with you on this, and how do you take something how do you recognize a community before it's there too?
Yeah, I think for me, I would agree with what RD said. I think the other thing is community is a feeling. And I think trade shows really do, and events really do bring that feeling together. You're with like-minded people, you've got common goals and common interests, and you're there to learn and foster and share with each other. So I see community really being at the forefront of what we do. We are connectors, right? Whether it's face-to-face or digital, we're helping people find information, learn from one another, and connect even further. So I would say it all starts by understanding your customer. there's a lot of different sub-communities who come to our events or who participate digitally. And I think we've got an opportunity to understand their needs, their motivators, and help them move forward by finding the solutions that best meet what they're looking for personally and professionally.
Paul, what is your theory of the case here?
I completely agree with Liz. It was so well spoken. I don't have a whole lot to add on to that. I believe the mission really is to deliver a place where a community, whether it's buyers and sellers or like-minded individuals or people that just have a common passion, can all come into one place. You have to foster that space. You have to give them the capability to search and seek and find each other, whether it's online, whether it's in person, or blending everything together. Give them that space. They have to take it over. They have to give the spark, and then you just let go and let them just fly at that point. And that's what really builds an engaged community and really gives you that essence of a trade show or an event that everyone just remembers.
When you say, we want to create a new trade show, and you see a community out there, what are the attributes of that community? Are you going for the hierarchical aspect of it? Like at BizBash, for example, we try to go to the event organizers and then everyone else will follow, because if you go to the top of the cascade, things flow downhill. Where do you go for success? When you see a community, are you going for the CEO levels? Different levels, but what is your rules of thumb around that? Like what works and what doesn't work, basically? So it's a question I did not put on the original sheet. So.
Is that geared to me or someone else?
I think it depends. So in the case of sort of a professional home, you really don't, you mean like in the case of the example I gave of accounts payable professionals, you really don't want the CEO there. You want to give them that type of peer-to-peer interactions where they can feel very comfortable. When I was at Diversified and we had brought IOFM in this community I'm talking about in, we also took a look at the administrative professionals group that we had there, and we created a certification program for them. So it's for an event company to think, oh, we could actually be the educator in a certification program. There's 2 million admins in America, and this gave them a formalized education platform and a home. I couldn't see mixing the CEOs in there. And then there's other areas when it's more functional in running, for example, a talent acquisition conference or e-recruiting or something related to HR technology. You might want the CEOs there because they're the decision makers, and you want them to see what's coming to the market.
Right. I think that answers a lot. I called this section Intro, Shock, and Awe, because we had these great communities. Things were going really well. Most event companies were having the best year ever in 2019. And then along comes March 14th. I remember where I was from everything from the Kennedy assassination to Reagan's assassination to 9/11. Where were you guys, and how did it impact what you did? What was that holy crap moment on March 14th? Liz, you want to start? Did you have one?
Yeah, sure. So we had just finished running actually a couple of live shows, and we were in the office saying, gosh, is it getting worse? What should we do? And I remember going in the conference room and we were saying, okay, we're going to go home, prepare and get your things for a little bit of time, but we didn't ever think it'd be this long. So we all came back and started talking to customers. That's the first thing we did. We were talking to customers and saying, how's it going? What are you facing? What's happening? And we realized every conversation got deeper and it changed, and it got more severe as we went, and we paused and said, we're going to be here for a while. How do we help our customers what they need today and quickly help them get moving in the right direction when we can't be that community live for them at a show?
And so, Paul, what happened on the holy crap moment for March 14th for you guys?
We had wrapped up the International Surface event just 6 weeks before that. And I think that event, the very end of March, the very beginning of February, was really the tipping point. The very last point you could probably get a show produced and completed without having very much fallout. All the shows that came afterwards started to feel the effects of attendees and exhibitors beginning to become nervous. You have to reassure them. And then it was like a landslide. It was going so quickly. By the time March 14th rolls around, the company began to move very fast. For a company of this size with this many colleagues, it was a wonder how fast they instantly started to look at what events were coming up on the horizon within the March, April, May, June timeframe. Start reaching out, start making that connection to the attendees, to the exhibitors, and start coming up with the formula of what is going to come next, and position the shows, whether it's postponing later into the year, or if there was not a possibility, if they were going to cancel and have to find new dates. And it all just came very quickly. It was like nothing I've ever seen before.
Did you have one thing that I found is, Liz talks about it's a feeling. What did you find that the communities needed? Just take it away from business and make it personal. What do you think when you talk to your customers? What did they say? Like after 9/11, after COVID, the one thing I found with our business is that our customers wanted a hug. They wanted a hug, and that we did webinars and we did all these things to hug the customer and the user and the community more than anything else. Did you find that too? And how did it, we're trying to come up with a manual for if it happens again, what do you do?
I'm happy to take this one. So I felt like our first conversations were not about, is the show going to run? It was like, how are you? Are you safe? Is your family safe? And I have to tell you, that personal conversation meant so much to our customers, and most importantly to our teams. They had real personal connections that helped us uncover more, but the thank yous we got for saying, you checked in with me as a customer was really powerful. And I think it really proves what we can do on a community as a whole as an event organizer.
How did you scale the checking in?
We had interesting pieces. So some of our teams had everyone on their team make phone calls. We thought it was important, no matter what your role in the business was, you were talking to a customer, you had a connection to the business. We all were coming home saying, oh my gosh, what do we do next? So it helped us do something positive. It helped us think about what do we do next, but it also helped us get more scale by talking to customers as a whole.
Paul, did you have that similar experience, or?
Yeah, sales teams across the division were helping each other out, making those connections, reaching out to exhibitors and clients, reaching out to advisory council, so reaching out to our partner associations, to our media team, the companies that we work with closely, associations, and help not just come up with a story from Informa, but also come across for the entire work that we do. So with the International Surface event, we are working with all the floor covering publishers, all the associations to build out a bigger reflection across the entire industry and essentially hold hands and make a united front.
On the human level, it sounds like we're all saying the same thing, that people want to be heard. And then it evolves. And then we talk about the virtual events and the trade shows and things like that to figure out what the format is.
The other thing is, when you think about these communities really serve as the place for business to evolve. It's really been astonishing to watch. I was in a healthcare startup when COVID hit, and look at healthcare, the industry, like we had telemedicine, right? But now it's really, it's grown 6,000% or something like that. We finally woke up to it. But even just our day-to-day business, we found ways to conduct business, and the communities that we're part of help facilitate that. The webinars, the virtual events, the meetups, all these things. Somebody said they're doing it this way. There was commerce conducted. The economy actually held on. Some businesses got much more efficient. And so I think that's absolutely an attribute of the events, the virtual events, the communities, all the things that keep that glued together.
Every time I get on one of these, it all comes down to the Maya Angelou quote that people don't remember what you said, but how you made them feel. And if, as a good communicator, a good community builder, I view that when you run a community, you are the mayor of that niche. You're in charge of everything from taking the trash out to giving the stars to the stars. So Liz, what was it like in the first meeting that you said, okay, we can't do the event, and you came to the realization that we have to do something? What were the instincts about what you do, how do you charge, do you not charge, what do you do? Well, someone said at this other event that we did the other day that being in the business today is like building an airplane while you're flying it. And it's like what we've been doing for the last year. And Liz, what did it look like inside? Take us inside Clarion, inside that boardroom with your key decision makers. And was it like an instant, immediate thing that everybody thought the same thing? Or was there fighting? Was there, oh my God, they won't like this or like that? Take us inside.
Yeah, I think what is so powerful about our business as a whole is we all came together and said, okay, it's not going to continue as we think. What can we do? But it starts by saying, what are you hearing? What are customers telling you? What can we do with that? And how do we help them? And I've never been in so many conversations where I was like, I don't know. I don't know the answer. We're going to test it. We're going to try it. Let's assume what it should be and let's see how it works. And as a whole, the Clarion team really came together. They tested, they tried. We did things we've never done before. And did everything work? It didn't work. But we were okay with it not working because we learned from it and the next group got better. And I think the other thing we did is and the other thing we did is we talked to a lot of our colleagues. What I've been so impressed with as a whole is the willingness to share what's working, what's not working, to partner and really together as an industry, figure out what do we do next as a whole.
Paul, what happened inside Informa? And also bring up the point here, before you say that, bring up the point, you're not meeting in the same, we're meeting like this. And what are the dynamics of meeting like this versus meeting in the room where you can whiteboard something easily? And it's a whole different way of thinking. Did that help?
Let me preface this, that Liz, RD are on a different level than I am. They're in the boardroom. I am way down the feeding line. So things just drop on me most of the time. It's not that I'm getting that immediate touch points put in there. So I was not in on the boardroom talk at the start of things. And I also want to preface that when this all came down, April 1st, technically, the company offered a sabbatical to staff that wanted to have a chance to take a step away for a moment, maybe go on a passion project, which I've had and brewing in the back. Right when all this took off, I left for 90 days. I came back after everything had calmed a little bit. So there's a quick preface to all this.
That's good.
But the first thing that ended up happening was we had to come together with an advisory council, and we wanted to try to put it together live. But first thing that we always have in the back of our mind around these things are all secure plans and making sure everyone stays safe and feels comfortable and is not pushed to feel that we're pushing boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. We ended up doing an advisory council for the International Surface event just like this. And what usually is a day and a half of in-person meetings became half a day of discussing everything in an electronic call, just like this. So that's a little bit more than I could give you if you want me to elaborate.
How do you come, and I'm going to turn it over to RD in a minute, because we're going to talk about the pivot once you've decided to make the pivot. But I'm very curious to see how you're sitting in a room like this, looking at the Brady Bunch boxes, and how do you actually conduct a meeting? Like, how do you come to conclusions? Are you somebody writing stuff down, and how do you do it? We're trying to do this in the world today. But I'm curious to see how you guys did it at Clarion or RD, how you did it at your organizations. Or Liz, do you want to jump in and see if you can give us a little?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if I remember a time without the video calls. It seems like it's just been part of what we've done for so long. But I'll tell you, we spent a lot of time planning, a lot of time talking to customers, but a lot of time talking internally, saying, okay, guys, what are you hearing? What are you feeling? How do we get there? What do you need? And I think it was more planning. It was lots of conversations, lots of video, lots of notes, and saying, are we on the same page? Should we move here? Is that the next step? Just constant communication, whether it was video or on the phone.
Why don't I turn it over now to RD? He's going to go through the journey after the pivot. Okay, you can't do an event anymore. You're not flying. You're rubbing down your deliveries that come into your house because you don't know what the hell is going to be on them. And people are basically terrified. And there wasn't even that much virus out there like there has been. So now you've got to start these communities, and let's continue the story, RD.
And you remember, David, in the early on days of it, we did a survey at SISO to identify what people were doing for online activities. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about virtual events because a lot of people went there, but there's lots of other online activities, online learning programs, meetups, all different types that we could talk about here. But let's just start with virtual events. Liz, many of your groups then came to the decision, like, we can't meet live. Are we going to go to virtual events? What were the early kind of decisions there, and what did you guys learn?
Yeah, so I think the first decision we came across, or learning we had, was not every event can be run the same way, and you couldn't take what you've done live and put it online. It wasn't going to work. Yeah. So what we did is we actually had a couple of different models that we had pulled together from the insight we had and the teams that were working on it. So we ran episodic content series, thought leadership, We ran product demonstrations live with exhibitors. We ran some marketplaces, which were, in full transparency, the hardest pieces for us to run and do well, which we've since stopped. And we ran hosted buyer and some membership-based platforms. So I think we took what we were learning and then took that and said, how can that be a strategic model for you to drive digitally for your shows? I think in parallel to working with the teams on the commercial side and the strategy, it was, okay, do we have the tech? Who are the partners? What's out there? And we evaluated as much tech as we could as quickly as possible, and then worked our networks to say, who else is out there? What are you hearing? What's working? And where do we go?
Excellent. Paul, what did you see in that pivot period where you discovered you can't do live events and you want to serve the marketplace? How did that happen in relation to virtual events or other reactions?
It was fortunate that we have so many events crossing so many different industries. Some of them came out faster and went quicker. There were some that did 30-day festivals. There were others that went for week-long events. And so we got to watch a little bit of a template. We got to watch the first tries at it and really look and see how did those fare, what was the feedback around it, and formulate the plan specifically for the show that I work on. What ended up happening is, having talked with the advisory council, having looked at the best learnings and best practices from the other show groups, is then begin to formulate, what does this particular group want? What do our communities asking for? And what's the best way to deliver it? And from that point, trying to produce and replicate. For us, this event is very tactile. It's a very purchasing event. So we had to come up with that for the audience and deliver that same kind of experience. Online education, networking opportunities, those can be replicated, but it's harder to do a trade show. But we were able to create as much of a trade show atmosphere as we possibly could to keep that buying and selling operations happening.
Great. I love Marco and Denzel's new book, Reinventing Live, especially where they talk about the prior see you next year attitude, maybe where 10 by 10 cement was being sold, and to this new sort of 365 mindset. And you just mentioned that a little bit, Paul and Liz as well. How, and I'm going off script here a little bit, but I think it's a really good area to cover, is like, how do we then take sort of these reactions? We had these immediate reactions to virtual events. Then we started to get into a groove and started to do different things to engage our marketplaces and our communities online. And we will get back to face soon. And there's lots of discussion of what hybrid will look like. But how do we keep that year-round community feel going and not get back to the see you next year attitude? Liz.
So I think it really continues to go back to, for me, is what are the customers looking for, and how are we delivering it to meet their needs? So, for example, our content series with energy, our energy brands, it's staying. It's something that we are seeing great value on. Our brands and sponsors want to be attached to thought leadership, and we're finding great opportunities to further produce different audience segments of specific content. And I think there's other examples like that, but for us, it was about, and as I look forward, it's about, how do I engage them? What are the behaviors, not just the registrations, that are moving them forward? And is there a repetitive behavior that we can unlock? So I think it's actually going to open us up to looking at our audiences and our segmentation and our content much differently than before, with new opportunities.
Great. Do you have any specific, you say repetitive behaviors that you want to unlock? We would love to know what are those behaviors that we need to unlock, because I think the engagement's the holy grail.
And I think this is when the most interesting thing to watch is, they may say they want something, but how are they behaving to consume that? So we started having our customers look at behavior levels, high, medium, and low. And we would bucket them by things that we thought would deliver the most ROI. And then we would say, if they're low, how do I move you to medium? How do I get you a little bit more engaged? And how do I make sure the content is resonating with you as a whole? So we're continuing to do that. And as I look at 2021, a lot of my team KPIs are going to be on engagement, because I know that matters to help drive audience and deliver ROI on the sponsor and value on the attendee side.
Is it much easier to get the KPIs on digital, though, so you can understand the audience more? Or is face-to-face just as effective?
I think you see a lot on digital. The challenge that we're running into now is it's not as easy to collect it into one place. So different systems give you different pieces. So you're pulling together all these spider webs to make your buyer single point of behavior.
And have you found things that really work and really don't work? I know everything's different, everything's different, but was there any sort of key indicators that something that we're not thinking about because we think we know what we're doing and then the audience tells us otherwise?
For me, it was go back to basics and make it as easy as possible to consume what I want, where I want to consume it. So the challenge of jumping over too many hurdles or too many systems to connect them to the endpoint was hard. And also when we marketed series of content, don't market it as you got to spend the whole day in education or a session. Take it as individual chunks of content and you can come and go with what you please and get it on their calendar. The simple adding to the calendar feature was huge for us. To be able to get people who have an interest, get it on their calendar, and then have them show up and attend the session live.
Paul, where are you in this discussion? What did you see?
I saw for past 10 years, every company I've worked for has been talking about doing a 365 event. Having the ephemerality of events, of a 2-day, 3-day, 4-day event, it creates a lot of fear of missing out. But then again, anyone that's not able to make it has missed out, and it's an opportunity that is lost. So this has really produced that 365 that we've all been wanting and struggling for. It just made that happen a lot quicker and a lot more nimbler. So the virtual event that we just did for the International Surface event was done. We had everything on set time. So it was by appointment. People could put it on calendars. People could have those notifications and reminders. We did quite a bit of advanced training to make sure to get people to actually log in advance and create the profiles. That's something that I think all of us have done, waited 5 minutes before the actual first thing that you want to attend, and then you struggle to actually get into the system.
Can you give us the trick on how to do that? We all want to know that.
Tutorial videos work great. We engaged a lot of our speakers, the thought leaders that were tied to the event, and had them do quick 20-second promos for us to one, get people interested and register, but two, to also give them the tools and give them the reminders to go and get everything set up online. And they're more likely to listen to them than they are to the show organizers themselves. So what else we've done is, after the event, kept it online for another 30 days. It just wrapped up. So people could go on demand. And I find myself doing it frequently. I register for an event and frequently I get called into a meeting or I can't get to the thing I want to, but now I can go back and actually go and see the proceedings and listen in on the talks and not just have it gone because unfortunately the timing was wrong and I wasn't able to actually be there in person. We're also going into a new venture with TICE that we are producing a lot of video and recorded sessions, and we're wrapping it under an event called TICE TV. So it could go into product launches for manufacturers. It can also be thought leadership in short segments and create continuously monthly content, whether it's a design tour in some of our partner interior designers projects or a new product launch. It could be all sorts of things. And that's really given us a lot of extra eyeballs, especially specifically on video. We're also coming out with more content and newsletters and our own milieu of the things that we encounter and things that we are hearing from.
Yeah, I want to hit on that sort of Netflixing of our industry there, where you can see anything at any time on your demand. And that's what people are now expecting. My organization, we just took over a group that's been doing a weekly webinar around tourism digital marketing every week for 6 or 7 years. And it's built up a library of about 400 of them. And some of them go out of date, but many of them are evergreen and it's constantly updating. So what we first did when we got in there said, you know what? You got the ingredients for a tourism digital marketing certification program. Because why do we run a 5K? We could run around our house. We could run in the yard for free, but we pay somebody to put us on a list to run with a bunch of other sweaty people so we can go across the line and get recorded that we actually did it and see what our time is. People like finish lines. And so so one of the interesting things there is, events can certainly go 365, but publishing companies now can go towards events. This example that I'm giving, we're going to do a digital tourism summit at some point, of course. It's like going the other way. There's all this convergence going on. Liz, something you said is a perfect segue into the next group of questions there around the platforms. And David really got me thinking when he said this, and I think it's fascinating, is some of the event technologies, and certainly there were a lot of event technologies around the event, not really too much in the virtual event space. It was very clunky coming into COVID, but there was a lot around it, kiosks and registration, and certainly around the marketing function and with beacons and all different types of data type things. But why is it? It seems like the virtual event companies that came either as a conference app and evolved very quickly, or had to play into that conference space, it took one track and really got traction very quickly. Then you had some of the very fast-moving software companies that had no event experience come in, and some of them are unicorns now. And versus the ones that were traditional event technologies, a bit static, but huge valuations. How did you pick and how did you process all of these things that flooded the market so quickly?
Yeah, I think that was the most interesting piece. I think through COVID, as you say, technology has boomed for our industry, which gives us a whole new range of opportunities. And I see the technology being more as a marketing arm of what we're doing as a whole. You're collecting better data, you're getting more engagements, and for us, we're measuring connections better. How we evaluated it, we looked at a lot of tech companies, their demos. I also attended a lot of people's different events to experience it myself, because I wanted to understand as a user, what were the things that were important and things I had heard from my customers that they liked or didn't like, and how were those companies doing it. But I also made sure I partnered with tech providers who wanted to partner with me. I wanted someone at the table who had just as much skin in the game as I had, and who could hear what we were hearing from customers and take it and help us develop roadmaps for success. And I think that's been amazing. They weren't being tech companies who were too many things to too many people. They focused on what they did well, and boy, they delivered it fast with a great timeline, and they really helped excel our experience and our deliverability because of what they've been doing.
How did you, when you evaluated these platforms, and we all do this sort of blink analysis, what was the thing that either turned you off or turned you on in the beginning of whenever you just saw a platform? Was there anything, any attribute?
I think there were two things. I think what at first was, how easy was it? I knew to get my customers to take a leap into something, it had to be an easy place for them to enter. But the other thing that I really look at is, are you going to be a partner and want to help me develop as a whole? Because I knew we were going to have a lot of learnings. And I knew for me, I like to have a partner who wants to work with me and grow together.
But do you think this is a book for everybody? Are we going for simplicity? If you do a day conference, it drives me crazy sometimes, because my attention span at home is not that big. Like, how do you do it in the new world? What is the typical time frame? And all these questions that we all have. And it's hard to answer. I don't know the answers either. But is a day conference that you had before a day conference virtual? Probably not.
I think sorry to jump in. I think ultimately, like anything, David, the market will determine what they want. People will go back, and I think there's going to be a lot of research and analysis done by marketing and departments, and obviously speaking to the delegates to decide how they want to do it, which is the same, I guess, when you're launching any new product or business. It's understanding the market that you serve and what they want. So I don't know if anyone's, I'm sure that you have, there's been lots of research and you've spoken to lots of, what have they been telling you? Is there an appetite to...
You know what I think has been interesting, Dan, is that what I'm seeing a lot of is, I'm not selling to the traditional person who buys the booth at a trade show. I'm now selling to the marketing executive, the digital person. So they're looking for more analytics. They're looking to understand how they will measure ROI, which has been really fascinating to see that we needed to up our game on KPIs and engagement to be able to help them find the platform or the product that worked best for them.
Liz, I use this question a lot, and everybody can answer this. Where are we in these digital platforms? Are we in the brick phone age, or are we in iPhone 14? You think we're in the early stages still?
I think we're early, but I think we've made great progress. And I think that's what I'm really excited about, is we've turned the corner to look at things we've never really had on our plate before, because we didn't have the time, or we knew the path we were going down. There's a lot of opportunity, but there's a huge benefit of how far we've come in the last 14 months.
How far do we have to go, though, is the question.
The brick phone age was 2010 and 11, when the first virtual event platforms were supposed to look like Second Life. And we figured out it doesn't really work. That's not you're not going to replicate the live event in a virtual event. You really want to create a cadence for the community's reason for meeting.
I just sat in a Clubhouse meeting last week that was geared around AR and VR, and it was AR, VR creators. And part of what they were talking about mostly was around gaming, but a few of them were circling around events, and they were talking about recreating platforms where it's not just going to be you sitting across on a video screen, it's the actual interaction with the VR goggles. Is it coming up quick? No, but is it coming up fast? Absolutely. As someone on that call said, Mark Zuckerberg didn't invest billions of dollars in Oculus just to play around a little bit. The technology's taking a little while, but I don't think it's going to be too far off where you're going to be able to actually have that VR experience.
Doesn't it have to be the kids that are coming up today are doing e-gaming and things like that with systems that are so much more powerful than what we're showing? They're looking at our stuff and they're saying, huh? And so I think that the challenge is going to be there. I don't know what you guys think about that.
We have an example of a 16-year-old that ran a birthday party fundraiser inside of Minecraft and raised $50,000. That's an event. That's an event, and this is coming. I really, Paul, I think your point about like when the experience can be there where you're actually meeting. I say sometimes I once flew to Las Vegas to have a lunch meeting. It's just crazy. It's bad for the environment. It's terrible for carbon. It was bad for my family because I couldn't be there home for dinner. But COVID has given us the chance to rethink all that. We're not going to fly to as many places now because we can do this. Before COVID, we wouldn't have even done this. We wouldn't have been forced to do it, so that it was a slingshot into the future.
Was it a nice lunch?
Vegas? No.
Let's get into part three. The part three of this we've already gotten into. What's next? Formats, finances, and forecasting. What is your feeling? What is a hybrid event to you guys? What is a hybrid event now? What do you think, Liz and Paul, to start with?
I think a hybrid event is going to try to give the experiences that can be delivered appropriately and correctly. The education sessions could definitely now have a live stream, or it could have even a lag in video. Those don't have to any longer just be in person, one and done kind of sessions. Those are very easy to go and create and deliver virtually. So you're going to get that hybrid opportunity. You also have networking opportunities that will bring the digital attendees and the in-person attendees together. It takes a little bit more creativity, but we're smart people. We'll figure that one out quickly. There is opportunities to try to meld in a little bit of a trade show experience, the buying, selling, but we can already tell it's hard to get that same replication. So being able to deliver that community and create the hybrid event is probably going to come largely from the content sessions and thought leadership.
Although I was interviewing GES on my podcast, and they were talking about how do you break the fifth wall? The fifth wall is connecting the virtual audience with the in-person audience. And they were going to do this thing, which probably early stage, where you walk into a room and there's a bunch of iPads on the wall. You pick up an iPad with a person and you take them to the trade show with you. And because it's forming the relationship, it's doing everything together. Who knows whether that will work. Liz, what is your thoughts on?
I agree with Paul. I think content is a nice play for us to extend the life for folks who can't be in person. But I think the other thing that really excites me is how do you take that next level conversation of connections? And imagine if I could meet with you before the show, talk about my needs, but then when I see you in person, it's even more of a meaningful connection and a conversation. And then maybe post-show, I really like what we talked about. I invite more of my teams to do a digital meeting with you to learn more about your product or service. Like, to me, that's unlocking more potential than before and extending the life of the brand that we offer, but also driving more meaningful conversations at the live show by having the digital component on either side.
One of the things from an economics point of view, and it fits into everything, and I want to go back to Clubhouse in a minute too, but in Denzel and Marco's book, they talk about how the economics are going to change, that the dirty little secret they say is that event organizers make more money on digital than they do on live. And that there's going to be more of a smaller footprint to live with a higher price because of scarcity and more of a virtual audience to bring it all together. Is that an interesting theory? Are you guys actually practicing that? Will there be 180,000 people going to Dreamforce in the future, or will there be more people watching it and select 50,000 people coming to it. What do you think?
I'm going to go back to that sort of, if they get that 365 engagement, that you're going to meet people in your community throughout the year that you are going to want to meet. And that's going to make the live meeting that much more interesting to go. Maybe they do put a premium on it, but also it's where you can go. If you prefer to learn that way, you can get the boot camps for the things that you need that kind of format rather than the online learning. And the other is true. You're probably going to attend events virtually that you would not have been able to attend live. So it's a net positive, but it really comes down to the relevancy of the community to the member.
Liz, agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I think you also may find you're going to have more of a qualified decision maker who's coming on site to the show. And I think that's a really good thing, right? You're driving greater ROI by having decision makers walking around and having meaningful conversations. I also think we could open ourselves up to understand who's engaging with us digitally and is there a regional play somewhere. So I think there's a lot that opens the door up for us, which is exciting to think about where we can head.
I wrote a piece about the hub and spoke method, the idea of having thousands of people, but regionalizing it, and then using new technologies like shared reality or spatial computing that enables you to multiply the event, the actual experience of the exhibit hall in the hallways of the hotels using virtual glasses and things like that. There's all these new ways of thinking about things that I find very exciting. But one of the things I wanted to touch on, and I find fascinating, and I think it's going to be part of what we do, why is Clubhouse so engaging right now? All it is people talking to each other. Why did it grow in the last 2 months like crazy? There's no beautiful centerpieces and cool things when you enter the room, but it's engaging. And I believe that people want to scale intimacy. And when you go into a Clubhouse thing, you're able to hear what the intimacy of the voices and the way it's orchestrated in collaboration. That should have an impact on what we do, in a sense. And they're trying to replicate what we're doing, and they're competing with us in many cases. Is
David,
that
David, is that because the UK joined the party?
I guess
we were late to the party, and we've just engaged with it so much. Is that the reason?
I think it's only the party's only gone on 2 weeks. But it's interesting. The behavior is interesting. I don't know, Liz, have you been on it?
I just got my membership into it, but I have not been on it.
Paul, have you?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think about it?
How did they do it? I would say that it was their very smart use of scarcity. So there was a limited number of invitations that were out there. And then they also got them into the hands of people that others wanted to listen to. The Bill Gates and the names are all the celebrities and the thought leaders today. It was just a really smart way of introducing it and then slowly broadening out. I don't know why it's only for iPhone and not just for Android. But
Scarcity.
They got something planned, I am sure.
But I think it's something that we've got to look at, that we think, is it going to be part of our new experiences, unlocking the behaviors at our shows and white labeling that kind of thing for our 360 audiences, 365 days a year audiences? And is that a way to serve them without the cost of editors? Like I was from the media business with Charlie and Acting McCurdy, and the cost of editorial and serving someone 365 days a year was why we went to have events, because you only had to do it once a year and you made a lot more money.
But Clubhouse, sorry, go on.
It's a good point. It's just another pillar of community, potentially. It's a format. It could be, why do we have podcasts in our community? Why do we have webinars in our community? Why do we have all these different things? It's another way to engage your community. So I don't know if it's a threat as much as it is a format.
Yep. We have only 4 minutes left. So do you guys, Liz and Paul, do you want to wrap up with what you think, what we've gotten at it today? And because I've learned a ton. I don't know about you guys. Liz, you want to start with?
I think the last year we've been in this has been a whirlwind of learning and trying and iterating. I think we're coming out even stronger because we've unlocked new opportunities. Technology has helped enable us to do that, but also we're changing the face of what the event business can be and what our teams can be to serve our customers. And to me, I'm excited about what the future holds and think about how do we continue to grow audience, deliver greater ROI, and even more connections for the industry.
Great. Paul?
I would say it's the beauty of the individuals and the industry as a whole and the capability to change on a dime and quick and move with some lightning speed. I've always liked to say that this industry has been fat, dumb, and happy for a while because everything's been going so great. And it's made some it made everything become very quick and very smart and became agile. And I think that's something to be very proud of. And I think that this type of creativity and finding new avenues to create a community and create more exceptional experiences and really deliver more value to all our stakeholders is one of the loveliest things that's probably going to come out of this.
Great. RD?
Yeah, the innovation has been inspiring. In our industry, it moves economies and it moves commerce. And we're coming out of this with better ways to do that. And so I also think there's incredible pent-up demand. They're talking about a roaring economy. I'm very excited about what's coming. The sun's coming out.
Yep, I think it's fantastic. My final comment is that I was at a session with Scott Heffernan, who started Meetup, and he said the most powerful word in the English language is the word let's. Because whenever anyone gets together, they say, let's go to lunch, let's go to dinner, let's hook up, let's start a revolution. At our shows, we put people in an atmosphere. The social physics of it drive people to talk to each other with these meaningful conversations and to say, let's do business together. But let me learn about this. Let me believe. Let me do. And I think that's what's so great about our industry, whether it's virtual or face-to-face, that we are collaboration artists. And that is kind of the key to the whole thing. With that, I think everybody, the evolution of events is fantastic, and meetings and trade shows and virtual, and it's all one thing. And I think it's all about these great communities that we're creating to create this scaled intimacy.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter at GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on.